Here's how to create part 5 using Autodesk Inventor Professional 2013. We should create a new file. We'll click on standard.ipt, and my Inventor is a little funny, so I'm going to restore down and maximize again, so now I'm all set. We should start by looking at the multi-view. We'll see that it's a rectangular shape. It's 8 inches long. This says 4 inches, so if we look at what that is, that's this higher part here. So that's going to be 4 inches long, so that goes right to the middle of the part, because 4 is half of 8. It has a hole in the middle of the other side of it, the lower side, which is 1 inch away from all the edges and goes through the part. We know that the lower step is 1 inch thick, and the taller step is 2 inches thick. So we've got the main idea to start. If we go back to Inventor, we'll select how best to start drawing this, and I'd like to draw it actually from the top this time, and so I'll show you how to do that. In Inventor, we'll click Create 2D Sketch. I'd like to draw on the top this time, so that's going to be this plane here. I'll click that plane, and now I'm not quite sure why it oriented it so the top is upside down. That's just sort of odd to me. I'm going to click on the home view anyway, so we get that 3D perspective a bit, and we can start with a rectangle. Now if I start drawing this plan from the top, I'll want this big main rectangle that's going to make up the base of this whole shape. So it's going to be 8 inches long, 4 inches wide. So here I'm going to click. Yeah. I'm going to bring a rectangle, something like that. Of course, those sizes are way off. That's fine, because we'll use the dimension tool. We'll make the long side. We'll click, move the mouse, click again. We're going to make that 8 inches. We're going to take the short side, click, move the mouse, click again, make that 4 inches. And then we'll auto zoom that. So far, you see that we have the base of the rectangle in the same angle, the same orientation as it is in the isometric view on the drawing. Okay, next step. We know that the lower step is 1 inch thick, or 1 inch tall, if you will, however you want to think about it. So from the bottom that we just drew, that bottom rectangle, we're going to extrude that up 1 inch. We're going to finish the sketch. Go to extrude. That's the only shape there, so it automatically selected it. It automatically put in 1 inch, so we'll hit OK. I'm going to click on the house to bring it back to the home view, zoom out a little bit. Now we can decide the next thing to add. Because we're going piece by piece. That's the best way to draw things in Inventor, a little bit by little bit. So let's add this thicker part up at the top, this 2 inch part. We know that it takes up half of the base rectangle, that it goes from the one edge to the middle of that base rectangle, 4 inches long. What we can do for that is we're going to create a new sketch, create it right on top of the rectangle. I'm going to go back to home view because I think that's going to be easier for us to see. You can use whatever view you'd like, really. And I'm going to go to the rectangle tool again. So here's a trick. If we know that this rectangle, this really the square, because it'll be 4 inches by 4 inches. If we know that this square is going from the far corner to the very middle of this larger rectangle, this base rectangle, we can just use the snap feature in our rectangle tool. So if we come to this corner, that circle is going to turn green because it's snapping to that corner there, the intersection of those two lines. We'll click once. And then if you remember, if we just sort of cruise along this line here, going to get to a point right there where it turns green, and that's the midpoint of the edge of that rectangle. We'll click again, and now without having to dimension, we know that that rectangle that we just drew, this square 4 inches by 4 inches, is exactly where it needs to be because it's snapped to the corner and it's snapped to the midpoint on the other side. So in our plan, we know that this is 2 inches tall total, but remember, we're starting on top of this rectangle. We're starting 1 inch high, so we only have to go 1 inch more to get to 2. We'll go back to finish our sketch. We'll use the extrude tool. Now there's two shapes, so we have to select this one. It's already set for 1 inch, so we can hit OK. And again, I'll use the home view to recenter. So we're almost there. We just have a little bit more to do. For this one, we have to go using our plan. We have to create this square. We have to dimension it from the edges, 1 inch from each edge, and then we've got to extrude it through to be a cut. In Inventor, to do that, we of course have to create a 2D sketch. This time we're going to draw it right here. And I actually like how it rotated it this time so that we can see the top view. If yours is that nice, awesome. If you have to move it around, remember you've got tools here. You can click on top. You can use these to rotate the view around however you need to. So I'm a fan of this top view at the moment. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, use my pan tool to get it right where I want it to be. So now that's looking pretty good. We'll go to the rectangle tool. Click rectangle. Again, we're going to click one corner, drag, click the other corner. And it's roughly square, but we know it's not right. We know we have to use the dimension tool. And according to our plan, each edge of the square is 1 inch away from the edge of the part. So all we have to do is click one line, click the other, make sure it's 1. Click one line, click the other, make sure it's 1. Click one line, click the other, make sure it's 1. Not sure why that jumped all the way up there, but that's fine, that works. Click one line, click the other, make sure it's 1. So once all 4 sides of that square are dimensioned 1 inch away from the edge of the part, you can finish your sketch. We're back to that home view automatically. I'm going to go to extrude. It's not sure what shape we're talking about right now, so we're going to choose that inner square. And right now by default it wants to add material, but we're going to cut with that middle button. The preview is showing a little red cut preview. That looks good to me. I'll hit OK. And there's your finished shape, which looks just like the isometric view in the plan. Now, of course, you can save that right now, get your snipping tool, create a screenshot to turn into me. I'm going to change the material on mine a little bit so it looks a little more interesting. That's exactly the one that was used before. And I'll create a screenshot with that new material because I just sort of think that looks a little better. And that's how to create Part 5 using Autodesk Inventor 2013.